Well, October is Black History Month, aimed at highlighting the achievements of our black communities. But where are the black politicians? Here in the East Midlands, there are no black MPs and only a handful of councillors out of more than 300 in our city and county councils. Our political editor, John Hess, has been taking a closer look.
The vibrant sound of the Caribbean. Members of the Leicester-based Contrast Steel Band hold their weekly practice session at the city's African Caribbean Centre. They certainly make a big sound. It celebrates their cultural heritage, but when it comes to Parliament, they feel the black community isn't being heard nearly loudly enough and is unrepresented.
In things like local councils, I hate to say it, the BBC, we haven't got a presence, really.
After speaking to a few friends before, they seem to be aware of issues but don't want to put themselves forward or feel that they're not going to be listened to.
Look around the House of Commons and how representative is it of our increasingly diverse country? The UK's black community makes up 3% of the population. The number of black MPs is half that. New research reveals that the black vote could be decisive in 25% of Britain's parliamentary constituencies. According to the campaign group Operation Black Vote, those 168 seats are in some of the most marginal seats in the country. Deborah Sangster is one of 2 black city councillors in Leicester, and out of 344 councillors, she's one of only 6 in the whole of the East Midlands.
Ethnicity, race, will always be a challenge. That young people, black young people, will be increasingly disenfranchised from the body politic. That the middle way that is represented by our 2 or 3 party system will be alien to those young people, and I suspect that young people, black and white, will seek to find their own solutions.
It's 55 years since the race riots in Nottingham St Anne's, when the first arrivals from the Caribbean sparked fury from some of the local white population. Now the city's annual Caribbean Carnival is an established part of Nottingham's modern heritage.
I think that the routes into politics, which are predominantly factored upon Eton, Oxford, Cambridge, exclude people like me, really. And then there's a kind of dynasty situation as well going on, isn't there? And if your grandfather or your father aren't already in politics, then the doors don't open as easily for you.
If those doors remain closed, our mainstream parties may find the volume of discord from our African Caribbean communities being turned up.
Well, I'm joined now by Carlton Howson, a senior lecturer at Leicester's De Montfort University, who's carried out a lot of research into this. Carlton, a lot of people there saying that they don't feel that their voice is being heard. Is this something that you've experienced? Is this your experience?
Yes, absolutely. The voices of black young people and black people generally tend to be stereotyped. They are heard in the negative rather than in the positive.
Okay.
In relation to being in politics, one has to have confidence that they, if they put themselves forward, they're likely to be selected within the party.
Yes.
And are likely to be selected within the wider electorate.
So why do you think we have so few black politicians then?
I think there's several reasons. I think that that there is a lack of confidence in terms of people coming forward in the first instance.
Yes.
There's a lack of support within the parties in terms of selecting candidates sort of going forward. And there is insufficient mentoring of black candidates to give them the confidence to be able to...
So there's a lot of work needs to be done, really, then?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Andrew, it's a worry, really, isn't it?
It is, and I think that everyone in the country needs to be able to identify with a politician they can really relate to, be they black, white, Asian, gay, straight, male or female, and we need that for a healthy representative democracy to engage the public.
Absolutely.
And they should actually be in all the parties. And it is getting a lot better in the Conservative Party. You know, we have a lot more black and Asian MPs than we've ever had.
Well, John pointed out that shot in the House of Commons, Chris, almost exclusively white. Where are the black MPs?
Well, there's more that needs to be done. But look, I think if you look in local government, there is a much better representation of all the communities in the country. But clearly we need to do more.
You've only got 6 black councillors across the whole of the East Midlands. That's not enough, surely.
Well, I don't think those figures are correct, because there's more than 6 black councillors on Derby City Council. So I think those figures need to be re-examined. But look, I'm not saying that everything's fine. Clearly, we do need to do more. I mean, I'm very proud of Labour's record. We were the first party that elected 4 black MPs in 1987. Labour was a party that outlawed race discrimination. I think Labour is the party that's offered the hand of friendship.
Those are the figures that we got
migrant
from Operation Black Vote. Do you have any candidates in the East Midlands for the next election?
Well, the candidates haven't all been selected yet. Obviously, in terms of our sitting MPs, I think they've all been re-selected or in the process of being re-selected. But look, this is an issue that we do need to look further into. But we also need to ensure that we're getting the policies right, because it's important to think that we're providing hope, jobs and opportunities for a range of communities. And there's also a class dimension as well, because this isn't simply about race, it's about class. And if you look in the House of Commons, there are very few working class people like myself who are actually in the House of Commons.
Is this helpful?
Well, I mean, I think for me it's interesting, because I was around at the point at which those 4 black politicians were elected, and for me that seemed like a moment of hope. But in some ways, I feel as if we've gone backwards. We've gone backwards in terms of what I expected to see over that period of time. That's a whole generation of people who've come through who wouldn't connect necessarily with those 4 black politicians.
It's not a time to be going backwards,
no, but
is it, Andrew?
I'll make a prediction. I mean, Chris raves about Labour's ethnic diversity. However, when the Conservative Party had the first female Prime Minister, I predict that the Conservative Party will have the first black Prime Minister as well.
Oh.
But it's about policies, though, isn't it, Andrew? That's the key. Clearly, we need to have representative politicians.
Who have you got in mind there, Andrew? I'm intrigued.
But you're also talking about doors being closed. The doors are there. It's a two-way street. People have got to have the confidence to go and find the doors. The doors can be opened.
And I think if we think about this in terms of message, being on message takes account of not only what people are doing in terms of working to support and increase the numbers of black politicians, but also the negative stories in terms of immigration. In terms of immigration, a message is put across that begins to suggest that you can't trust black people. Black people, in terms of immigration, will be perceived as more likely to be supportive of such policies rather than. So there's a contra message.
Right, okay. And that's not helping.
With regard to immigration, I mean, that the people most vulnerable to the next wave of immigration are actually the last wave of immigrants. They've got far more competition for resources than Chris has or I have. You know, that is the point.
Well, no politicians can afford, can they, to ignore the black vote, particularly with the general election coming up?
I don't believe the Labour Party has, and I think if you look at the kind of voting intentions amongst the black community, they're more likely if they vote to...
14,000 BME voters in your constituency, Chris, and your majority is just over 600, so they've got muscle, haven't they?
No, absolutely. But look, for me, it's about not just sort of pandering to one community or another. It's about ensuring that we give hope to people, that we get the right policies in place, that we generate jobs and growth, decent quality jobs as well, invest in education. Now, what we're seeing, I'm afraid, from Andrew's government is the very reverse of that. The economy is still 3% below what it was before the crash.
More opportunities and better schooling is good for all communities. Better healthcare is better for everyone. Good policies are good for everyone, whether you're black, white or Asian, and that's what we should always pursue.
Yeah, I'd totally accept that. Good policies are good for everyone, but you cannot get away from the fact that there is a contra message that is being communicated, and that contra message leaves a situation in which by and large, white people do not have the confidence with black people standing as most likely to be representing their needs.
Sam Gaim has just spent over a year as David Cameron's PPS. He's been next to the Prime Minister for the last 18 months.
I think we definitely have made progress. I mean, there's clearly more to do, but I think Carlton would acknowledge that we've certainly made some progress in terms of getting representation.
What would you like politicians like these two to do to make the situation better? Can it be made better?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the point that I'm trying to make is that in terms of the message that, which one of you are prepared to have, a black candidate shadowing you? And whether they're a candidate or not, we need people to be involved and see the whole mechanism of politics as it takes place.
It's up to you guys to get these people involved.
In addition to that, there's the additional message of communicating not just with black people, but also with white people across the board. As you said, in terms of class, that it's a class, gender, race issue that is taking place here.
Are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to take people on, mentor them, as he's suggesting?
Absolutely, and also I'm prepared to take on the BNP in my constituency. My seat was the #1 target for the BNP in the East Midlands. When we drove their vote down from what it was at the county council election to a fifth of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work with a black community in my constituency and indeed across the city of Derby, and very important that we need to continue to do that, certainly.
Carlton Howson, thanks very much for joining us in the studio.